Welcome, my stars of Orion. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Orion Kelly, that autistic guy. I'm all about providing validation and support for autistic people and their loved ones. Now, on this video, I'm joined by another awesome autistic person, Cooper Knight. He's an award-winning autistic filmmaker and he's writing his own book. Cooper, thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Hey, good to be here.
Man, I really appreciate your time. Let's quickly update people, get people up to speed who are watching. So I know you are an autistic filmmaker, and I know that you love what you do, and you've been rewarded for that work. You've nominations and awards and all that type of stuff. But everyone watching doesn't. Give us a bit of a get them up to speed on you and who you are and what you're about.
So my name's Coop, as you can probably guess. My full name is Cooper Franklin Arthur Knight, so that's a bit of a tongue twister. So Coop is going to be the best nickname to call me at this point. Here's a couple of cool things about me that you probably don't know just looking at my profile. I am on the autism spectrum, and it would be hard to tell right away unless you look at the tiny details, like having a hard time articulating answers if they're answers are needed straight away. Mostly because I've been awarded, I've got awards and nominations for my work as a filmmaker. While I was a freshman in college, I got a Best Director Award for a student short film called Conehead. And while I was a senior in 2019, what I did was make a short film about my autism journey from the time I was diagnosed in 1999 to when I graduated college with a bachelor's degree in 2019. I know, you're probably thinking, this guy's on the autism spectrum? I mean, look how intelligent he is. Current works as of right now include instructing students at this company called Talk to the Camera, which is a Colorado-based company that specializes in after-school programs where students can learn social skills and collaboration skills while making their own short movies at the same time. They also include broadcasts and YouTuber instructions, and recently they included Saturday Night Live kinds of skits for their programs. Other works include my very first professional short video where I'm a creative consultant, and that's coming soon. It's called Bone Rush, and this is a collaboration between me and some of my college friends, one of whom, Brianne Nicole Wilson, has her own company called Leaky Skylight Pictures. And like I said, I'm the creative consultant in that picture, so that is even more confusing to think, this guy is on the autism spectrum, but how can he be? He's so intelligent.
Hey, Coop, you've mentioned that a few times. So growing up, did you find that it was just your life was just kind of constantly riddled with misconceptions? Did your diagnosis come early in life? It seems like you've experienced a life where people are constantly mislabeling you, or it's like, no, you can't possibly be, or this or that. I mean, tell us a bit more about young Coop.
What can be said about young Coop? Well, the doctors that first diagnosed me on the autism spectrum back in 1999, they're probably going, yeah, this is not fixable, and he's stuck that way, non-speaking for the rest of his life. Those doctors are probably going to see one of those podcasts and go, okay, I'm going to head out of here. Because they didn't want to. I know, right? Isn't that goofy? But yeah, that was just one misconception when I was diagnosed with autism that I've had to clear up. Others include, Coop's on the autism spectrum, so he probably can't do, he can only do special education. En contraire, young Coop ended up doing Norwood Elementary School, so getting an elementary school certificate with the way normal kids do it. That was like in 2008. And then in 2011, I got a middle school graduation certificate. Same goes with 2015 when I got a high school graduation diploma from Silver Creek High School, again, just doing some of the original work that neurotypical students were doing. And there is a difference between neurotypical and neurodiverse. The biggest difference being neurodivergent people are going to see something that neurotypical kids happen to miss, depending on who you ask. Every individual neurodivergent person is, in fact, going to catch a individual thing. It's kind of like having a fingerprint that makes you unique.
100%.
It's also
100%.
worth mentioning right now that the neurodivergent people like myself are going to have their special interests.
Can you tell me about yours when you were a kid, Coop? Was it always filmmaking, or what were yours when you were growing up?
And originally, my special interest was trains, but then that changed in a heartbeat when, during my very first trip to Universal Studios Islands of Adventure, I was introduced to Jurassic Park River Adventure for the very first time, and suddenly seeing moving dinosaurs for the very first, in person for the very first time, suddenly made a light switch flip to where I suddenly got dinosaurs and prehistoric creatures as a special interest, and that's continued to this day. If you're between the age of 6 and 9 and you've had a special interest in dinosaurs because it helps your brain develop, well, I hear you.
100%.
That special interest has continued to this day, even as a filmmaker.
So, how so? How has that special interest flowed into your creative side?
One of the most prominent ways that that's flowed into my creative side, I've been drawing pictures of dinosaurs for as long as I can remember. And in fact, I'm drawing pictures of dinosaurs for a novel that I'm currently working on. And this is going to be my very first novel.
Tell us about it.
So what if in 1944, this young woman realized she needed self-confidence to stop her national park director from weaponizing prehistoric creatures and dinosaurs for Hitler's army. That is a log line that I use all the time for my novel. And it's gotten my college friends hooked. It's gotten the head manager at Leaky Skylight Pictures hooked. And in fact, the short film that we're working on right now counts as a prequel to the novel that I'm working on. Sort of testing the waters just a little bit to see what would a cinematic universe look like for my novel.
Do you think it's been harder or easier than you thought it would be writing a book? Because most people think writing a book is the hardest thing you could ever do.
I've definitely had to take some courses at Colorado's Front Range Community College. And my dad's had to take a couple courses on how to publish a novel and all the nooks and crannies that's needed to get that novel published worthy. And writing a book isn't going to be easy if you're trying it out for the very first time. I'll tell you that much.
Yes, I can tell you from experience. It's crazy. Do you think that there's something about, being on the autism spectrum that has given you a different type of creativity that's kind of helped you?
So yeah, being on the autism spectrum, like you said, that gives you a different kind of creativity. Depending on which artist on the spectrum you're talking to, the creative juices that being on the autism spectrum is going to benefit may be different. I can tell you one of the people that I've known previously, her name is Sarah. She has a specialty for drawing just as much as I do, and her style is quite different. Mine's going to be clean, and Sarah's, meanwhile, is going to be looking like something that is straight out of a kid's cartoon.
Okay.
Not that I can't do cartoons myself. I most definitely can do it. Hers seems to be more the speciality, her being Sarah. And that's just one example of an artist on the autism spectrum and or filmmaker like me. If you go on the Etsy shop or the online store of this Colorado-based company called Imagine, what you'll find there is like a host of different arts. Different arts and craft styles, and design styles, and illustration styles that are reflective of the individual artists on the spectrum. I've got a couple myself.
So did you just teach yourself, or were you always just good at it?
I was just good at it. So taking art classes during my grade school, middle school, and high school career was a piece of cake.
Okay. Well, that's annoying to me because when I draw a dinosaur for my 10-year-old autistic son, it looks like a dog. So I'm very annoyed by that. It's not good. I drew it, and he drew a mouse the other day, and it looked like an axolotl. So I don't think either of us are very good at drawing. So I'm very jealous. Tell us about the filmmaking, though, because I'm interested into how you even get to this. Out of all the things that you thought you'd be doing, today, right now? I mean, how did it get to this?
So to answer the question, how this film and TV stuff got started, to put it very simply, I was going to do paleontology work as part of my career, which is like the study of fossils and ancient prehistoric life forms. But then when I saw what I could do with film and television, because I'm always thinking in pictures, I'm thinking, you know what, doing film and TV work just so I can animate dinosaurs and prehistoric creatures, that might be really smart, because the target audience is going to want to see what these fossils look like in the flesh, instead of me just having to talk it over with them.
Is there like a particular goal with regards to, where you see yourself headed in that industry? Is there something that you're particularly reaching for or wanting to do or wanting to achieve?
Well, on the subject of things that I want to achieve, number one, while you're doing film and television work, it also is smart to do something else that's creative on the side. Like, for one of you listeners, that could be writing an article for somebody, and for another one of you, that could be like what I'm doing, which is writing a novel, which is going to be, both are going to be challenging to say the least. I think Orion can speak for that. But as long as you put in the hours, it's going to be worth it. Back to my goals and achievements, fingers crossed that the novel that I'm working on becomes so successful that it spawns its own film and television franchise. And along the way, there is room for a couple of nominations, which provide more proof that yes, any filmmaker on the autism spectrum can still win trophies for the artistic films and TV productions that he participates in. And the good news about that is there's plenty of companies out there that are willing to give neurodivergent filmmakers and artists half a chance, including some based in California. And in fact, the companies that employ neurodivergent peeps have gotten to take a part in Marvel Cinematic Universe movie productions and DC movie productions, just to name a couple examples of film franchises that neurodivergent audiences and filmmakers and artists have helped with.
As you've kind of built more experience and, you've done this more and more, how have you found it, like historically from the start? Maybe it's getting better now, but with regards to being, a neurodivergent person wanting to be in that kind of filmmaking industry, did you find there was a lot of pushback, or people just thought, no, well, you can't do that, or that won't, you can't possibly be creative or want to be a part of this kind of thing? I mean, did you have a lot of barriers to jump over?
Probably the biggest barrier right now is in Colorado, your film and television work is going to be scarcer up in Boulder County, for example, than it is going to be in Denver or Lakewood or Centennial, things of that sort. The manager at Leaky Skylight Pictures LLC, the studio, she is working at NBC Universal, all right. You can cross that barrier a little easier. But where I'm currently at, Colorado doesn't really have its own miniature Hollywood yet, which is a different story from areas like Austin, which in turn actually have a miniature Hollywood. That's how much film and television work is going on there. So if you're in the Austin area and you're neurodivergent and looking to try out film and TV work there, I'm sure if you ask around and get some help from things like the divisions of rehabilitations in Austin, you might be able to find some film and TV work. By the end of the spring semester, when I've moved from Colorado to Austin, Texas, I'll definitely have that opportunity. I'm counting on that.
Do you think that a lot of neurodivergent, creative people or even, aspiring filmmakers run into trouble because they may struggle or not want to move to the areas where there's work, like, Texas or Hollywood? Do you think that's an issue or a barrier for them?
If you're neurodivergent and you're used to routine, moving from one area to another for film and television work might be a bit of a stretch. Yeah, but it's doable. Believe me, this is coming from a neurodivergent filmmaker who is still used to routine.
Do you have any thoughts or tips on how you've discovered to make it a bit easier on yourself, or what kind of challenges you experienced and how you worked through it?
For one thing, this has been a big thing for me. Practicing first, like a couple of rehearsals, just so you can get your bearings around what's going to happen. And also, if you can do your own research and you have a internet and you have a computer that can pull it off, do not hesitate to research what you're about to get into. That will help in the long term.
Do you think there are many neurodivergent filmmakers out there? Is it growing and it's changed, but did you feel like there wasn't many around when you started out? Is it something that people are interested in?
To put this very simply, there's room for more neurodivergent filmmakers out there, believe me. And there is going to be space for neurodivergent people in just about any kind of industry. There's always plenty. The question remains, if you're a neurotypical audience member who's watching this podcast or listening to it, what do you think will make the situation more cozy for you to get to know these neurodivergent counterparts? And then once you answer that question, how do you maintain self-love? Because this is a huge change from what from what pretty much anybody is used to.
What about you? Have you experienced that kind of neurotypical, neurodivergent kind of clash in your experience working with others in that kind of process?
In that kind of process, well, what happens is neurotypical heads are clashing with neurodivergent heads, and there's a bit of a discombobulation there, because no one on both sides is going to have any idea what does one person need to better understand this person. That's the biggest hurdle for pretty much any industry. And neurodivergent peeps like myself are sometimes going to have a little bit of a hassle just to communicate that. From a young age, for example, I've been having a hard time articulating answers accordingly and as fast as possible. And I still do. Hence why you may sometimes hear me pause for a bit and try to repeat myself.
See, I think that's a really great insight. I think that's something that's really important to share, because from my point of view, there isn't really a job or an industry really on the planet that is easy for neurodivergent people to, one, get a job, and two, keep a job. And that's obviously and clearly a worldwide issue for neurodivergent people, because we're put under these standards, this idea of neurotypical professionalism. And I think that's definitely an issue. But for example, in the creative world, and obviously I've worked in radio, you work in filmmaking. In the creative world, it's not about being opinionated. It's everyone is very attached to their vision, their creative thoughts or vision of things. And there's only one way that can go if there's more than one person involved, and that's bad. It's everyone's gonna clash. And then if you're an autistic person, you're a divergent person, the way you convey that is probably going to come across to neurotypical people as an unacceptable way of communicating. But of course, all we're trying to do here is communicate, but it's just completely not connecting. It's two completely different operating systems here. And then you add to that the fact that, you are autistic, you are neurodivergent, and therefore, you have strengths, but you also have challenges. And clearly, in a fast-paced, artistic, creative filmmaking world, they don't want to, or they don't care if you can't just spit out your answer or your thoughts, right? They just want it, and that's the way they demand it. So I think that's a really fascinating and a really helpful insight, because this is a world that you're trying to navigate through, but you aren't what the cookie cutter says you're supposed to be. But you're still pushing hard and doing your best. How are you supposed to explain that to a neurotypical person, that I have all the answers you need? Right? There's nothing up here that's wrong. I have all the answers you need, but my processing time is different, and therefore I've got to process it and I've got to spit it out, and I might say it a few times and there might be a gap. That's the biggest challenge. How can you convey that? Do you find you're still trying to explain to people the same thing over and over with regards to, how you come across different?
Yeah, that's another big challenge for me. How do I tell all these neurotypical people, oh, I do have the answers to some of your problems. The only difference is the time it's going to take me to answer all your questions. And even then, one question at a time, so I can fully articulate all the answers. That's usually how it goes. And even then, there's the other outside complicating factor, that is my mind switching to what I'm going to call a mind game, where I easily get distracted by, for instance, a Saturday morning cartoon that I used to watch that suddenly comes back into my head, and particularly in private spaces, I repeat that out loud to myself, or at least as quietly as I can.
I mean, I do the same thing all the time with random lines and quotes from movies and TV shows and all sorts of things. It's a constant, and I understand. And it comes across completely out of context. I mean, we're talking about echolalia, palalalia, these kind of things. But this is the issue. So these are rock solid autistic traits. So where others can think, why are you stimming like that, or moving, or why are you saying these words or making that noise, or doing these things? And the core point is because I'm autistic or because I'm neurodivergent. That's the reason. And I guess the hardest thing is being in a world where that's not done, and also being in a world where they could somehow accept that you are different and you are going to, you are going to manifest creativity in a different way and come across differently, and them just accept it. Because I would think in most industries, especially yours, that would sound like a fantasy that people would just accept, that you like to do, echolalia. There's things you hear on TV or movies or shows or whatever, and it makes you feel good, just to yell something out. Like, I still do it from Home Alone. I guess the question is, how do you think that can ever change in this situation? Because you must find people aren't willing to just simply accept that that's a manifestation of, who you are.
The culprit behind that is having a big ego, as far as I can tell. There's like being so proud that they have food on their food on their plates, shelter over their heads, and a bed to sleep, and some ideas that they can, that help them make sense of a scary world. Suddenly, here comes this neurodivergent person that has a different take on the same, on these same ideas, and suddenly the neurotypical person feels like his way of life is under attack, or her way of life is under a severe attack. So it's a really defensive backlash, and it may work in the Ice Age, but in a civilization that is striving to be more okay with having different brains come together to solve the problems, well, that can be a little challenging.
Do you feel like you try to suppress the real you when you're working, or trying to, like, you try to fit in rather than be you?
The good news is Leaky Skylight Pictures allows me to fit in. So does Talk to the Camera of Boulder County, Westminster, and Denver. That's the good news. A lot of other companies out there, that still hasn't clicked for them.
Yeah.
As long as you're okay with having this neurodivergent person just be himself, then you're off to the races. And who knows what kinds of mind-blowing achievements that this neurodivergent person can accomplish. Let's keep in mind what all the serious accomplishments that neurodivergent people can do within at least 4 to 5 years. I, for example, was able to complete a curriculum of cartoon animation for Talk to the Camera, and after I finished my senior thesis film for University of Colorado, Denver, it was submitted to the Cinefest, and it got nominated for a Best Documentary Award. That's just to name 2 examples of achievements that this neurodivergent person can do, just given half the chance to be himself.
Yeah, and so what you're saying too is the industry as a whole, not necessarily the places that you work at, but the industry as a whole are still failing to see the win-win. Like, if what they gain by allowing you to be you, is that kind of the idea that they're failing to see there's a win-win? Is that something that you can see?
Smaller companies are getting better, all right. For example, DreamWorks Animation was more than willing to have a actress with a disability to partake as a voice actor in Jurassic World Chaos Theory. There are, however, other companies in that industry that aren't getting the message, probably because of their big egos. And they're trying to pay the bills, and if their money is taken away, then they're in for a tough time, and they're going to get hyper dysregulated.
But I think the point you're making is obviously they can have happy lives and be successful and make loads of money by actually utilising neurodivergent minds to create new and different ideas and projects. It's actually a win-win for everyone.
Exactly.
What about other people watching, listening right now that have a similar fascination to you with creating, but think, no, that's obviously not something that I can do. I'm autistic or I'm neurodivergent, and this is, well, what do you have any thoughts or advice on those types of people that may be, a young Coop or maybe wanting to explore it?
So if you're neurodivergent and you want to explore art yourself, but you don't feel like you have the capacity to do it or to pull it off, maybe try drawing a circle or doing a cartoon animation a day. All you need is a pile of sticky notes and a pen, just to draw simple things like like a ball bouncing. Because once you do a cartoon animation, or even write something creative like once a day, over time you're going to get the hang of it, and next thing you know, you're more than able to take an art class. And goodness knows, only you know where that takes you. Maybe you'll win trophies because you've been practicing even well after your art class.
And what about if they would say to you, yes, but I do everything differently to neurotypical people. Like, everything I do is different, or they think it's wrong. So how could I possibly, do that?
To put this very simply, they're telling them that that you do things a little differently may not work. It may not work because they feel like your ideas are being slammed. So if you show them how you're making these pieces of art, then maybe they'll understand better, because everybody's going to think in pictures at some point, and pictures are basically how we communicated for the longest time, ever since we first developed. That was like in 300,000 years ago.
It's a fascinating thought about the idea of autistic people and neurodivergent people in the creative arts, because, as you know, the perception or the misconception would be that it's just black and white, robotic, unimaginative thinking. So it's so good to be able to talk to someone who can show people that that's just not right. I mean, that's just not right.
Yeah, it's great to talk about it too.
I really hope that you get that book up and about soon. It'll be fascinating to check out. So best of luck with the continued work on that. You just take it one step at a time. That's the best way to do it. Just like you're on this fixing the International Space Station, you can only really focus on one little task at a time, or you'll never get the job done. So that's how I would do it. But I really do appreciate your time, Coop. Have you enjoyed the chat?
I've enjoyed this chat tremendously. Thank you so much for providing this opportunity. Well, I've loved it. Well, I guess I brought this all together in the first place, so I may take some of the credits, while you take the other half.
Well, that's right. You emailed, so you can take all the credit. I'm happy with that. It was just great to meet you and great to chat. I really do appreciate it. So thank you so much, Coop. I hope to talk again soon.
Hope to talk with you soon.
How good is it talking to other autistic people and just hearing their story? I love shining a light on you guys. So thank you very much for watching this video with Coop and Knight. If you want to check out more, go to the playlist, my collaborations playlist, with plenty of autistic people talking about them.